According to my spreadsheet, because of course I have a spreadsheet, I've been on over 60 different TV shows and movies in the last 4 years. Bet you've never seen me though. There's been some confusion in the past, rightfully so I guess, when I say that I do background work. I think the assumption is that I'm using the term like day job or side hustle. I'm a YouTuber, but also I do work in the background. What I actually mean is that I do work as background. Most TV shows or movies would look bonkers weird without a whole horde of performers known as background or extras. I feel like outside the industry, more people think of these guys as extras, but inside the industry, I actually don't hear that term used as much. Possibly it just gets a little confusing. If the director yells, "Go get the extras," people may be like, "Extra what? What do you need extras of?" I don't know though. However, despite how necessary all of these extras, these background performers are to make a scene look realistic by populating streets and theaters and stadiums and stores and bars and restaurants and every place that would have more people in it than just the ones saying lines, you don't often hear much about this job. There's a couple blatant reasons for this. NDAs. There is an NDA with every single day on set, and the terms of when you're allowed to say, "Hey, I walked by in the background of that scene," can be a little hard to figure out sometimes. Another reason is extremely quick turnover rates, as in most people aren't doing background for long, at least not consistently or as their main gig. Most people are passing through, doing background until they get something better, and once they do get something better, they're less likely to want to ruminate on those good old days sitting in background holding for 8 hours before being told you weren't needed after all. Most people on set as background are hoping for something more, something better, more visible, longer lasting, higher paid, so they're just less likely to share about what it's like to do this job. You don't want to mess up any future opportunities, and it's also just like not as cool as, getting the lead someday. Those who actually do background long-term or even full-time, I think just don't consider their jobs to be all that special or interesting, honestly. Maybe. That's just my perception from having talked to a bunch of people on sets. Yes, shocking, I talk to strangers when I'm on set. You're together for so long doing so little that you just kinda have to pass the time, and actually hearing everyone's stories is a part of the job that I really enjoy. Also, the entertainment industry as a whole is just horribly secretive, which is something that I think is changing a bit more, especially with social media. Like, I love seeing prop masters and makeup artists and VFX artists, sharing more about their jobs and what they do and how they do it on social media because, yeah, what they do is fascinating and it's worth sharing about and learning about. I know it's not everyone's interest, but I love learning more about how the entertainment I enjoy is created. So I thought I would share what it's like to work as background today because I think it's a pretty cool job. I'll just be sharing carefully due to the aforementioned NDAs. I actually started taking note of background performers when I was a kid, because one of the stories that my mom would share with us about her single days was this random time that she was an extra in a movie. This would have been the 70s, so the whole system operated completely differently than it does nowadays. But she said that a friend just asked her one day. She said she was gonna go be an extra on a set. They needed more people, and would my mom like to come along? That was about the whole of the story though. She never even knew what movie it was for. She just said that they were fans in a football stadium. Despite the lack of details, I was always fascinated with that story. Probably because I was fascinated with movie making in general back then. Like, y'all, I devoured the special features on the DVDs of my favorite movies. I liked the behind the scenes more than the movies themselves quite often, and I would even be brought to tears sometimes thinking about how incredible it must be to work on a movie set in any role. But then I got into theater in college and I just kind of pushed the film industry out of my mind. It felt very distant and unapproachable. Not gonna lie, it still does. But in the strange way the brain has, it randomly recalled my mom's background story one day while I was working at Disney World. Actually, I was taking a bathroom break, and sorry, we are gonna get slightly sad, just very, very briefly here. I thought of her story and how neat it would be to be on a movie set like that, and I immediately thought I should ask her more about how that actually came to be. And then I remembered that I couldn't because my mom had actually passed away a few months before that. Okay, sadness over. I got on the internet instead and looked up how to be an extra, and the only information I could find at that time made it seem like you needed an agent just to do background work nowadays. Inaccurate. But that was enough deterrent for me to just put the whole idea on the back burner. So I ended up coming to background work through a rather odd route because I actually started by casting background. My first time ever on a legit TV set was The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I was there as the casting assistant and background wrangler. Though I did get thrown in a few times when cancellations were through the roof, I didn't switch over to being background until we moved to LA. And while I did enjoy casting background, it was an awesome job. Good lord, it was so much less stressful to just show up and sign in and do what I was told instead of being somewhat in charge. We're gonna skip over my casting days because that is a whole messy, convoluted story of its own with its own set of, you guessed it, NDAs. I'm sure I'll chat about it someday. But having had that experience, I now knew how background are cast. At least I knew the major companies and how they operated. The largest background casting company in America is called Central Casting. They've been around since 1925. They have offices in LA, New York, Atlanta, and New Orleans, and they have cast the background for a whole lot of stuff. They're currently the only company I go through just because background work is such a side hustle for me nowadays, and they honestly make it the easiest, although their database of performers is also so big that you can go a really long time without actually getting a job from them. Before YouTube was paying the bills, I did a lot more active work to pursue background jobs. So I went through a whole bunch of different companies and casting directors, and let me tell you, getting the jobs is a huge part of the job, as in it takes massive amounts of time and effort. But you don't get paid for any of that, only for when you're actually on set. Oh, I forgot to turn on my light. Did that make a difference? With Central Casting, though, you register in their database for free, just having to show up to their physical office at whatever location you're in to fill out the paperwork and to have like a very simple mugshot style photo of yourself taken. This helps ensure that you are indeed a real person who actually lives in the area and is not using a fake photo. Then you just go about your life, and when they have a job that you fit the description for, you get an availability request via text and email. This tells you what the production is, what date they'll need you, never what time. You are expected to be available and ready to work the entire day. And sometimes it'll tell you the general area that they're filming in. It'll also tell you the role title, although that doesn't usually tell you much. It's very often generic stuff like pedestrian or fan, and then it'll tell you if it's a union or a non-union job. If you're a non-union performer, you should only be getting non-union offers. Then it'll note the pay rate, which should be the same in most circumstances. Pay for extras is based on the state minimum wage as well as SAG-AFTRA standards, so while it will differ state to state, it's pretty much always listed as a dollar amount over a number, like this. This is because you get a minimum guarantee due to that whole you have to reserve the entire day thing. Since we often don't know until we're on set, and sometimes not even then, like sometimes you don't know until you leave for the day, how long you're gonna be working, you can't pick up more than one job in a day or do a background job on the same day as your day job or whatever. If we set aside a whole day for this job and then they only ended up needing us for 3 hours and we only got paid for 3 hours, that would really suck. So in California, pay is currently $140 over 8. This means if we work any amount of time up to 8 hours, we get paid the full $140. 2 hours, $140. 8 hours, $140. After 8 hours, you start getting overtime, time and a half, up to 10 hours, and then from hours 10 to 16, you get double time. After 16 hours of work, union actors get what's called golden time. It's that full minimum amount every single hour. But I don't think that non-union gets that. I think we just keep getting double time. I don't know though, I've only worked one 17-hour day since I've been in LA. Basically what this means is that production companies have to shell out big bucks, or at least slightly bigger bucks, if they want to work their crew and background super long hours. And that was the non-union rate. In California, every union production, which is pretty much all of your normal TV shows and movies, are required to have a certain number of union actors as background before they can start hiring non-union actors. And union gets all that same stuff, but with a higher starting number and that golden time. Okay. I gotta put the blinds down or something. I'm getting like blasted in the face by sunlight. Thank you, I love you, but also, yikes. That did nothing. I'm just gonna let it be bright. I don't know what's happening here. You also get pay bumps for stuff like getting wet, having to breathe atmospheric smoke, bringing your car or driving your car in the scene, bringing your pet. My third job, I believe it was, here in LA, I was cast with Link on the show The Flight Attendant. Let me tell you, I have never been so popular on set, although no one really had any interest in me whatsoever. They all just wanted to pet the puppy. He got to meet all of the actors, the director, the DOP, and then I'm pretty sure he did not show up in the scene at all. Maybe very, very briefly. He was so tired at the end of that day. It was adorable. I will note that the same rules for pay do not apply to other states. So, for example, in Florida, where I did background casting, not only was the minimum wage lower, but they also upped the base hours. So the number there was $125 over 12, meaning you had to work a full 12 hours before you saw any overtime pay. And we did. We worked a whole bunch of 18+ hour days there. I'm pretty sure double time wasn't even a thing. There were also no union background performers on set because Florida is what's called a right to work state. I don't know a whole lot about the logistics of this. I am not a union expert, but I'm fairly certain that it's only in California and New York that productions are required to hire union actors and to follow the union rules for background. Even Atlanta, Georgia, where so much stuff is filmed, is a right to work state. I find this unfortunate because I've personally seen how the lack of advocacy and accountability leads to background being treated poorly or taken advantage of. A lot of filming is moving out of LA right now, and while I'm like, yeah, that's great, cool, spread the industry around, the reality is that production companies are able to pay human beings a lot less to do the same jobs by doing them in other states where there are no union protections yet. Anyway, that got really technical for a bit. Huzzah! I love technicalities. Back to LA. Once I get that availability request, I can look over the information that's provided and decide if I'm available for that job by marking yes or no. Sometimes there will be other specific questions that you have to answer for a job. Quite often, do you have any visible tattoos, or are you willing to be clean shaven for the men? They'll confirm if you're willing to work out of town, if they're gonna be filming on location sort of far away. They might ask things like, are you comfortable jogging a lot, or do you have formal wear, or are you okay to be around fake blood or nudity? Once you answer all these questions and say, yes, I'd like the job, that doesn't actually mean that you got the job. They send out availability requests to large groups of people, so they have a pool to choose those final selections from. When I was casting, I would generally send out about 100 requests for every 10 roles that I needed to fill. A lot of people won't respond, some people won't be available, and then some people are available but don't fit the actual needs for the role. For example, if they do have a visible tattoo and production won't allow that. Who ends up getting cast can depend on a lot of different factors. If it's a really large group of people, say 100 fans in a baseball stadium, or it's just a really non-specific group of people, like maybe 20 pedestrians of any random kind, then it might be based on who responds the fastest. But often there is a lot more specificity to it. Sometimes you even have to get the background approved by the director based on their headshots. Background is cast almost entirely off of looks. Which sounds weird to say, like, oh, that's so shallow, it's just about appearances. But yeah, it is. That doesn't mean that only conventionally attractive people are cast, not even a little bit. Most of the time, what is wanted for background is just a range of very average-looking people who won't stand out. You don't want background performers to draw the eye or distract the viewer from the actual story. So people are being matched to the logic of the location. If it's a scene in the club, then yeah, they're gonna want like young, hip, hot people. But if it's a scene in a grocery store, then they just want people. In my experience, one of the most castable looks to have is adults who could pass for teenagers. We call it 18 plus to look younger. In other words, you are older than 18 and therefore can be worked adult hours, but you could pass for younger. Generally speaking, you want to avoid having kids on set if at all possible. Kids are expensive. Often the pickiest job for background, the one in which directors and producers and casting directors have to be the most picky about looks, are period pieces. Both of the shows that I did background casting for were period pieces, and that added a lot of complications. Why am I separating this? That's not... You just forgot what piece you're working on here, man. This is not a separate your thread thing. But let's assume that I said yes to an availability request and then I got chosen. Huzzah, I have just the right look. I will then get a booking offer saying, hey, we actually want you for the job for realsies. You can then choose to accept or deny that job. Schedules change really fast in this industry, so possibly you've already booked something else. If you say yes, I'll take the job, then that's it for the moment. Now we wait. You might be released. Their nice way of basically firing you. Again, it's not you, it's just how fast stuff changes. The show could have had a massive schedule change, the director could have changed their mind, the entire episode might have been rewritten. Stuff happens. But if stuff doesn't happen, then the night before you're supposed to be on set, you'll finally get the actual information about it. Hopefully, you will get that information before 7 p.m., but not always. Actually, this hasn't happened to me a lot with central casting, but it did happen once recently. I got the details for the next day's job at 11 p.m., and it was a 6 a.m. call time. That's the main thing you need. You don't know what time to show up to work the next day until you get this info. It could be 4 a.m., it could be 4 p.m. Okay, so I have a background job tomorrow. It's about 4:30 right now, and I just got my details, which is nice and early. Love that. I can't tell you much about it because it's too present. It's happening right now, so I'm not allowed to share any details about it, but I can tell you my call time is 8 a.m., which is not that early. I thought it was going to be a really early call time because there will be a bit of makeup involved in this, so I love that 8 a.m. This one is interesting. 'Tis my first time playing a corpse. Woo! You also don't know where you're going yet, so you are waiting on this detail sheet for location, time, and then the final thing that you need that you get the night before is wardrobe info. Sometimes you have a fitting, which is lovely, it's fun, but it's actually not that common because most stuff takes place in modern day in very average situations. So the wardrobe department doesn't want to dress you in their clothes unless they absolutely have to. It's part of your job as a background actor to provide your own wardrobe whenever requested. For non-union, this means bringing multiple changes of clothes, usually at least 3, according to the mood boards and instructions they've given you. For union, you're only required to bring 1 outfit, with layers. They love layers. I have a game that I play with myself, not even consciously, but it's always there subconsciously. It's Win the Wardrobe. I have done some jobs where we did fittings beforehand, like I Want to Dance with Somebody, where we all needed to look like we were from the 90s, as well as some uniformed roles. Nurse, military, cop, dog shelter employee, we had uniforms for that. But the vast bulk of the work that I've done has required me to bring my own wardrobe. My goal each time, the way that I win, is to show up to set already wearing the outfit that they will approve. No changing required. The line for wardrobe at the start of the day is often long and slow, so I try to make my interactions with them as short and easy as possible. How about this? Yes? Okay, moving on. The middle ground of my self-imposed game, neither winning nor losing, is if they do have me change, but it's into my own clothes, something I brought. Wardrobe always has a selection of garments that could work for whatever scenes they're filming though, because you know, there is always some dude who shows up with absolutely nothing, despite all the very clear instructions they've given. So if, for whatever reason, despite the bag full of clothing that I brought, wardrobe decides to dress me in their own clothes, then I have lost the game. Why? Because it slows you down at the end of the day when you're checking out. I enjoy doing background work, that's why I still do it. I love being on set. But at the end of a 12 to 14 hour day, I do want to go home as quickly as possible. And leaving set can be a whole thing, especially on sets like Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, where I worked a day with something like 300 extras as hockey fans in a stadium. Ooh, the lines. The lines were long. There's often a bus from set back to base camp, and then there's that long wardrobe line. Anyone who's been given a piece has to turn it back in before they're allowed to then join the long checkout line. And once you get through that, there might even be another bus that you have to take from base camp to wherever they had you park. It can just be a very long process at the end of a very long day. So my goal is to always cut that wardrobe line out if at all possible. Also, I just gamify things in my life for some reason. I don't know, it's fun. Call time got moved up to 7:30, still not too bad, and this is a super easy one because I did a fitting for it so I don't have to bring any clothes with me. So I have got my bag of stuff to do while I'm there. I didn't have to do my hair or makeup because they'll be doing that for me. I have coffee. Let's go. You also just never know what they're gonna put you in if they decide to go with their selections, and it's often not very comfy, mainly because it's just not your clothes. I worked a day on Grownish, where all of the options that I brought were deemed not hip enough, which, like, fair enough. So the wardrobe ladies concocted this outfit for me, and they seemed very pleased with it. I thought it was incredibly odd, but then again, I am not hip. I don't mind wearing whatever I've been told to wear for a scene though. I'm not like embarrassed by it or anything because it's not my style. We're all playing roles here. In this case, the outfit was simply uncomfortable. Like none of the clothes actually fit me, so they were kind of just precariously balanced on my body. And then worst of all, they gave me these absolutely incredible leopard print lace-up knee-high stiletto boots. Y'all, they were so cool, and they were also very painful. By the second take of the first scene, of course it was a standing scene, my feet were already screaming at me, and I had hours and hours of this to go. And then, by some great miracle, I swear to God, I did nothing to make this happen, the heel broke off the right boot. I was saved! I hobbled over to the wardrobe person like, oh no, they were so cool, what a tragedy. How about I just wear these very practical flat boots that I brought myself since you can't see my feet in the scene anyway? You really get a range of people working in wardrobe though. Most of them are awesome and so nice and lovely to work with, but some of them are all of that and also really aware of what background do all day and actively trying to make them more comfortable. And then others are super nice, lovely, awesome people who just don't seem to have thought through the comfort levels of the extras. One more wardrobe story because this one is just amusing to me. I did a day on the TV show Ted that came out recently, and it was like a college Halloween party scene. So they asked everyone beforehand in those availability requests if they had a Halloween costume that they could provide as their own wardrobe. And I was like, not really, but I can kind of like whip up a 1950s look. That counts as a costume, right? Sent them that photo, they approved it, they booked me, all good. Turned out the wardrobe department was actually fully prepared and expecting to dress everyone in their own Halloween costumes. They didn't expect any of us to bring our own, because the show takes place in 1993, so they wanted the costumes to match that time period and like reflect pop culture and everything. They also wanted a bunch of the girls to be wearing sexy Halloween costumes. So they hand me this nurse costume, and already just looking at it on the hanger, I'm like, this is meant for... You know what this is meant for. But because they had made it seem like we'd be wearing our own clothing, the photo that we sent them beforehand, I hadn't brought like a wide array of undergarment options the way that I would have in this situation, had I known. So I go in the changing tent, there's like a dozen girls in there squeezing into the wildest array of Halloween costumes, and I very quickly realized this nurse costume was not gonna work for me. Again, I'm not picky. I'm pretty willing to wear whatever people want to put me in, but like, my butt was just out. There was no fabric covering it. Of course, I am so, please don't let me inconvenience you in any way, shape, or form, that instead of just taking it off and saying heck no, I wrapped the giant sweater around me that I had very luckily worn that day, trekked back to wardrobe, and gave them a peek of this monstrosity. And thank heavens, she was immediately like, oh, okay, no to that. But what I absolutely love is the next option she pulled for me, because it could not have been more opposite. She handed me a pair of 90s jeans, a black t-shirt, and a baseball cap with a brunette wig attached to it. I was Wayne from Wayne's World. It was the freaking best. I was so comfortable all day long, and they paired me up as like a couple's costume with the guy that they had dressed as Garth, who was really nice, so we had a lot of fun. Okay, we're at the studios where we are filming today. A lot of TV shows have like a home base where the main group of their sets are at a studio, so like the big ones are Universal, Warner Brothers, Fox, Sony, but there's also so many other small ones in this area. And they'll mainly film there, and then they'll go on location whenever they specifically need to. So yeah, we're at a studio today, and I'm actually here kind of ridiculously early, but I always prepare and leave in time for the worst possible traffic, and today there was not the worst possible traffic. There was just light traffic. So we're gonna go check in a little bit. I'm gonna sit here and drink my coffee for a minute, and then we'll go check in. So we've got the details for the job. We know what call time is, we know what wardrobe we're supposed to bring, we know where set is, where to park, where to find base camp, which is the place where they set up all of the trailers. Upon arriving there, you find a PA and check in. Most sets are fully digital now, so that means that they'll scroll through a long list of names on an iPad and put a little check mark next to yours to say that you were there, but some are still analog. Then there's a shuffling of papers, a check mark next to your name whenever they find it, and a pink timesheet that you have to fill out very specifically and hold on to all day so that you can turn it in at the end. I do not really miss these. Every time I've been on a set still using the physical timesheets, you'd end up in line at the end of the day. At least 5 people don't have a pen to fill out the timesheet. At least 2 have no idea how to fill it out because this is literally their first background job and nobody has told them. And a PA keeps yelling things like, lunch was $2.30 with 1 meal penalty at you. Ah, the good old days. This was literally like a year ago. I haven't worked a single non-digital job in the past year, but I also haven't worked very many jobs at all, so that might just be coincidence. We've already talked about the wardrobe line and all that comes with it, but after that, you might be sent to hair and makeup. Or you might not. This can range so much for background. There are sets where no one will even look at your hair and makeup, and then there are sets that have a whole line of chairs and mirrors and crew members just for you. The most common thing is for one person to just walk down a row, making sure that you look presentable and asking if you have tattoos. This is not because Hollywood has some vendetta against tattoos, not at all. It's because some tattoos are artwork, like copyrighted artwork, and you can't show them on screen without getting permission from the tattoo artist, which like they're not gonna do that for background. It's not worth the time and the effort. So usually they just won't risk it. If your clothing doesn't cover it up, they'll do it with makeup. Once again, my goal with hair and makeup is to always be good, just as I am, to just not cause them any extra work or inconvenience. And usually that's what happens. I usually just get a thumbs up and a photo for records. Sometimes though, they decide to tackle my hair, and pretty much always regret it. Y'all, my hair does not look like much of interest, but it is way more of a beast than it seems. Very straight, very slippery, and very thick. I came with my hair in a ponytail once, and the girl there was like, oh, let me just redo that real fast, make it a bit smoother. And I like to warn people, but also I don't want to be like, hey, I know more about your job than you do. She literally could not get the ponytail bands back around my hair. You gotta have strong fingies. On the set for Truth Be Told, we were doing like a semi-formal fundraising event scene. So I'm in a cocktail dress and I'm like third in line for hair, with another 50 or so people trickling in behind me. The hair lady decides to curl my hair because straight hair is not formal enough. And I did warn her. I did it as politely and humbly as possible, but I was like, hey, just so you know, there is more hair here than it seems, and also it will be straight again halfway through filming. She still went for it. I sat in that chair for ages while she curled my hair. And like, hey, I love having my hair done. I was having a grand old time. But the one other background hair person who was having to do everyone else by themselves was perhaps not. After stopping by wardrobe and then 2 hours in the makeup chair, it was finally time for breakfast slash a snack. I actually cannot show you my face at this point. One, because it's crossing into NDA territory, but two, because YouTube would not allow it. Here's the spaghetti that I had for dinner. Completely unrelated. Now the waiting begins. Most of the time you get to eat breakfast, but generally you're settling into background holding at this point, which for me means whipping out either a book or my stitching. I never go to set empty-handed. The vast majority of my 36 sashiko pieces that I spent 18 months working on were stitched on sets. Most notably, the first 3 of them, which I completed on a 3-day job on the show Reasonable Doubt. I'm in the back of the courtroom and my stitching is tucked out of sight next to me. The term hurry up and wait is often used in association with background work because when they need you to do something, they need you to do it now, fast, immediately. The entire world is waiting on you. But the vast majority of the time that you're there, they don't actually need you. One time while working on the show Hacks, the entire group of background sat in holding for, I'm not kidding, 8 hours before they were able to use us. That certainly wasn't their plan. They don't want to be paying 50 people to just sit around doing nothing, but something had gone wrong on set and it had delayed everything, and sometimes that's just how it goes. On the other hand, I worked a day on The Goldbergs where they had us dressed in 80s clothes, on set, through the scene, and checked back out in 3 hours flat. It was so speedy that I couldn't have gotten any stitching done, which was a good thing because I happened to forget my sewing needle that day. I was only needed in one scene today, so I was done by lunch, which is the mid-meal of the day whenever that day falls. It was not a normal lunchtime. I managed to grab some fruit salad really fast, and then it was time to hit the showers. It is admittedly a bit odd to step into a trailer in a public space to take a shower, but I had a lot of gunk that I needed to wash out of my hair, and actually the shower trailers are pretty nice. If you're on the job for more than 6 hours, they'll feed you lunch, though not always at that 6-hour mark. Stopping in the middle of filming a scene to go eat lunch just is not a practical or logical thing to do. So meal times often get pushed quite a bit, and we actually get paid what's called meal penalties for that delay. Again, that's just kind of an incentive from SAG-AFTRA to get productions to feed the people on their set at a decent time. Like, hey, if you don't feed these people lunch, you have to pay a fine. But honestly, you'll never go hungry on a set, at least not like any decent union one, because there's also Crafty, a big old table, or sometimes a truck, full of snacks and drinks that you can partake of all day long. Crafty for background can actually really range, even here in LA with union rules. I've been on sets where it literally consisted of potato chips, apples, and water. And then on other sets, it is this full, massive, incredible spread. And sometimes you'll even get included in hot snack. That's like a mid-morning between breakfast and lunch hot snack for the crew and the main actors, and sometimes the background actors. It'll be like taco bowls or wings or shrimp or whatever. It's literally like a whole meal in itself. So it's not guaranteed. There is still quite a bit of range, but generally the bulk of my experience has been that food on set is really good. Union protections are also making sure that background have a decently comfortable holding area all day long. It's not uncommon to spend more time in holding than actually on set. So having a place where you can sit down and store your belongings, a place that's air conditioned in the heat of summer or heated in the cold of winter, is really important. Remember that day on Hacks that I mentioned? Well, because of the delay, they clearly hadn't expected us to still be on set after sundown. So as soon as the light went away, it got really cold outside and they were scrambling to source and set up heaters for us. But honestly, like it was not good. We were absolutely freezing and huddled around just a few heaters that they finally found. It was a pretty miserable night. But that's not a very common experience here. Usually you are very comfortable in whatever holding area they found for you all day, and it's only when you go to set that you're exposed to the elements. I've been in holding areas that were tents, people's front yards or dining rooms, hotel conference rooms, basements, restaurants, these massive trucks with super loud generators. Finding background holding falls to the location department, and they get creative. So that was it. That was a day of being background. It's about 4:30 now, and I am checked out for the day and heading home. I even got a shower out of it. Yay! This was a pretty fun one. I just got to lay still on a gurney for like the entire thing. So, hey, that's a pretty easy work day. And this was my first time getting this level of prosthetics put on my face. And it was really fun. I quite enjoyed it. I love doing prosthetic work. It doesn't bother me at all. So it was really enjoyable. I actually have a second day on this same show as the same corpse. So I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun. Lights, camera, action! That's what they yell on sets, right? Not really. Let's get nerdy about terminology, shall we? Y'all, I really am such a nerd for TV and filmmaking. So once all of the background are checked in, dressed, hair and makeup done, fed breakfast, and settled into holding, a PA will generally pass through to take all of you, or sometimes just a few of you, to set. There, it's usually the second AD, with some help from the PAs, who is in charge of placing the background. They'll set everyone into the scene and give you your actions. Sometimes that just means 100 people sit in the stands at a baseball stadium and cheer when the AD points at you. But a lot of the time, it's much more choreographed than that, with people crossing through the scene, arriving, leaving, grouping, chatting, and even reacting to the action of the scene itself. There are sort of background standards that everyone just kind of knows somehow. I guess it just gets passed around after you've been on set enough. Things like, don't point. When you point in the background, you draw the viewer's eye. You don't want to overreact. I always like when people find the scenes where background actors are doing the most. But honestly, most of those will never make it to screen. You will be seen drawing attention, and you'll be removed. They'll even take people's height and clothing color into consideration. Like, they don't want to have somebody wearing a really bright color of shirt directly behind the main actors. They also wouldn't want to group together like 4 people who are all wearing navy blue. Basically, you're trying to make the background look so natural and realistic that it's actually unnoticeable to your average viewer. No pulling focus, nothing stands out. So you're in your place, you've been given your action, whether that's sit here and type on a laptop, or clap and cheer when you get cued, or count to 10 and then cross from point A to point B. The first term you may hear yelled out is first team. That's the actors being called to set. They're not there yet. It is their stand-ins who are currently in their places. A stand-in is a very specific role that is not seen on camera, and it might sound from their job title like they just stand there, but their job is actually much more complex and they are expected to perform it very well. They're typically cast to match the main actor in height, body shape, skin tone, and/or hair color, although different productions have different levels of pickiness with how matchy-matchy they want their stand-ins to be. Height is usually considered the most important element because these stand-ins are taking the actor's place during the long and often tedious process of setting camera angles, setting the lighting, and setting the background. This can sound a little diva-ish at first, like, oh, these actors are too important to stand there for a while doing nothing, but it's actually just practical. Sometimes you're standing in the heat, and if the actor got all sweaty, they would have to be completely touched up before you could move forward with filming. Sometimes they have lines that they need to be learning, like scripts that have literally just been changed. Sometimes they're just in uncomfortable clothing that would not be great to stand there in for half an hour, and sometimes, yeah, they're just a big enough name that they're only gonna come out of their trailer to film their close-up. That literally happened on a set I was on. I don't think I can say who it was. So stand-ins do spend a lot of time standing, but they are also expected to perform blocking when asked, to read lines, even to, gasp, emote. And then they're expected to remember and keep track of everything they've done and professionally relay it to their actor. Stand-ins are also called second team. So when the director is done with them and ready for the actual actors, second team will vacate set, and first team, the actors, are called in. The next thing we might hear called out is pictures up. As far as I can tell, this just means that the actors are here, they're in place, and we'd like to actually get going now. There was a set I was on where everything was dragging. Like, who knows whose fault it was? Stuff was just taking forever at every step. And as if in a desperate attempt to get things to speed up, the AD just constantly walked around and yelled, "Pictures up!" And then nothing would happen for another 15 minutes. But if stuff is happening, then you will hear last looks. That's the cue for wardrobe, makeup, and hair to check the actors, and sometimes the background too, one last time. Lipstick is refreshed, flyaway hairs are combed down, the comfy Uggs are replaced by the stilettos. Everything becomes picture perfect. Next, you'll likely hear rolling. This means that the cameras are now rolling. This is the point as background that you straighten up, put away your phone, hide your stitching, because we are about to go for realsies. Just kidding, you should never have your phone on set. Then you might hear sound speed or just speed. This means that sound is now recording. Generally, right after hearing this term yelled, a camera assistant will do the oh-so-famous clapperboard thing in front of each camera. Being background, scene 8, take 2, mark. After that, there's a few terms that you may hear called out just depending on how the scene is being shot. Basically, they're all cues. Lights, camera, action is 3 cues in a row. Lights go, cameras go, actors go. However, it's pretty rare for lights to be cued nowadays, at least as far as I've seen. There would have to be something happening right at the beginning of the scene, like a big flash. The camera may be cued if it's going to be moving at the start of the shot. You want the camera to already be moving before the actors start their performance. You might also hear playback called out if there's any kind of sound cue. Like on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, they would usually play a few seconds of music at the start of each scene to get everybody into the same rhythm. But most often, the next call you hear is not action, but actually background. That's us! Just like you would want the camera moving before the actors in a moving shot, you also want the background to be moving, or even just performing stillness, before the actors start their scene. Take, for example, these two scenes. Can you tell a difference? Can you tell a difference? It's pretty obvious that the second time I started moving as I said my line, rather than before, so it doesn't look realistic or natural. This is actually a slight pet peeve of mine that I frequently see in short form content. People not starting to move before they start talking. It's such an easy fix. And when it comes to background, the last thing you want in the back of a scene is for an extra to suddenly start going. It's pretty noticeable and distracting to the actual scene. So background is called first, and we start performing our actions, whether that's across or just sitting there. It's always so nice when your action is literally no change, like in this scene in Nobody Wants This, where I was just leaning up against a wall with my back to camera, so I didn't have to do anything. We call that backting. And finally, action is called. And the actors start performing their scene, and the background keep performing their actions, even if that means you cross by the same window 7 times in the same shot. Then you'll either hear cut, or, because they don't always cut, still rolling, which means we're going back a bit, but we aren't stopping the cameras, we're still recording. Either way, you'll typically hear reset, which means if your point B is different than your point A, you better get your tushy back there as fast as humanly possible. Again, no one wants to be waiting on background. I can't even remember what show this was on, but I worked this day where we were all in business attire, and luckily I was in like nice flat shoes, but the girl next to me had been put in heels, and we were outside in this big like business park kind of area, and the scene was pretty long. So she walked so far in the actual scene, and then they would call cut, and she would have to book it in her heels all the way back to where she started. I felt so bad for her. Her feet had to be killing her. Anyway, after doing that 2 to 24 times, you might hear turning around, which means they're gonna do the same scene, but from a different angle. So the camera has to be reset, often the lights have to be reset. They might call for second team while the actors scurry back to their trailers, and the whole cycle restarts. Or if they happen to be done with that scene, someone might yell background to holding, and you all file out and go back to your waiting games. So that is what it's like being background. Honestly, it's such a cool job that even after spending an entire day in full military gear, sweating in the August sun, I'm still really happy to be doing it. Young me watching those behind the scenes featurettes would just be thrilled to know that I've made it onto sets in some way, shape, or form. Filming is this massive endeavor with so many moving parts and so many skilled people involved, and it's absolutely fascinating to observe all of them in action. I love watching the camera and lighting crews figuring out the next scene, doing all of this stuff that I don't really understand, and yet is absolutely necessary to get the exact look that the director wants. Props people always have the most insane collection of items in their trucks, wardrobe trailers run like well-oiled machines. And as background, all I really have to do is pay attention to everything. I get to just pay attention to everything. It's so different than being at home filming by myself, a camera crew of 1. And I've actually learned quite a lot from watching the professionals. I don't do as much background work anymore, but the joy of this job is that it never has to end. I can keep doing a role here and there for the rest of my life. You never age out. As a person who loves collecting random experiences, it's the perfect side hustle. Let me know if you ever catch me in the background. Hello. Welcome, thank you. Good lickings. There's fur everywhere. Ooh, spooky. But a lot of times, she's beauty, she's grace. She will kick you in the face. Ow! I just bonked myself so hard with that. I got bits. They're multiplying. Goodness. I'm afraid that's dead. It's you. It's me! Butt itching. Oh, there was so much fur in that. Ugh. Nope, that's it for that. Ugh. Blah. 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 Terrible.